There's a lot of anger on your continent, and we've been able to solve a lot of it.
We want to work with the United States in peace and security within the region because we are committed to that. And we just want to thank you so much for this opportunity.
Well, thank you. And such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes, sir.
In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
We encourage the countries here today to make greater investments in defense, hopefully, of course, buying our equipment, because we do make the best defense equipment. I guess we proved that about 2 weeks ago in Iran.
My people, it is good to be back. And boy, do we got a lot to catch up on. 5 African presidents walked into the White House last week. And what happened next? Well, is one for the history books, and not in a good way. A summit framed as partnership, but looking more like a high-stakes auction. A sales pitch for President Trump. Oil, gas, minerals, fishing rights, even a golf course, offered up with smiles, handshakes, and desperation. This meeting went viral for all the wrong reasons. Trump's condescending remarks, awkward flattery, leaders pitching resources like product. But the most important part, it didn't go viral. Most people missed what was really at stake. Because this wasn't just a meeting, no. It was a modern-day scramble for Africa, except this time, our own leaders were making the sales pitch. They didn't demand fairer trade terms. They didn't question AGOA's future. They didn't ask Trump to reconsider his travel bans or tariffs on African nations. They didn't take the opportunity to educate him on how Africans are building a new kind of future on their own terms. Trump walked in like a deal maker. They walked in like the applicants. And the world watched. So what really happened inside that room? Why were these 5 countries chosen? And what does it reveal about just how far Africa still has to go? Stay with me, because this is not just a story about Trump. It's a story about Africa's future. We're going to break it all the way down. But first, a big welcome to all of our new subscribers and members here on the channel. We are so glad you're here with us. And if you're watching and haven't joined yet, this is your personal invitation. Here at Panda Genius TV, we don't just report the news. We go deep beyond the headlines, dissecting how global decisions are shaping our lives, our futures, and our world. If that matters to you, then you're in the right place. So hit subscribe, tap the bell, and join our membership community for more exclusive content. And if this episode moves you, consider dropping a super thanks to support our mission and share this video to help amplify our channel. All right, now let's get into it. Now, before we get into what was said at the actual meeting, let's give it the proper context. President Trump invited 5 African heads of state to Washington for a 3-day summit. Now, on the surface, it was framed as an opportunity to strengthen U.S.-Africa ties. But the guest list and the agenda told a very different story. Now, the 5 countries represented were Mauritania, Liberia, Senegal, Gabon, and Guinea-Bissau. This wasn't a continent-wide engagement, no. And that context matters, because as you're watching the exchange at this so-called summit, you might be thinking what I was thinking. If this is what leadership in Africa looks like in the 21st century, then we are in big trouble. But no, this wasn't Africa's top brass. No South Africa, no Nigeria, no Kenya, Ghana, or Egypt. This was a small group of small to medium-sized nations handpicked by Trump, each one facing serious political or economic pressure, each one rich in natural resources, and each one holding something America wants and believes it can get. Trump, who never makes a move without strategy, saw these nations as pliable, easy to pressure, easy to flatter, easy to strike deals with. That's why they were invited. The summit came just weeks after he announced his so-called shift from aid to trade. a strategy he claims will lead to stronger economic ties with Africa, but that many recognize for what it really is: deals with many strings attached. Behind the scenes, officials say the U.S. was looking to secure access to critical minerals, push deportation agreements, open doors for U.S. defense and energy companies, and counter growing Chinese and Russian influence on the continent. So this wasn't just about investment. No, it was about strategic leverage. And from the very start, it was clear who was holding the power in the room. Instead of walking in with bold demands or a united African front, the leaders walked in with deference, thanking Trump for his leadership, praising him for bringing peace to Africa, and pitching their countries like investment packages. The 1-hour meeting was part press conference, part performance, and part a wake-up call. Because if you listen closely, this wasn't just a summit. It was a spotlight on the unequal power dynamics that still define how the world engages with Africa. And if we're being honest, it was hard to watch. We're going to break down what was said and what wasn't said by each of the 5 leaders in the room. And then I want us to talk about it in the comments. Now, Trump opens up the meeting with this.
Well, thank you very much, everybody, for being with us today. And I want to thank you, all of these great leaders, for joining us as we welcome to the White House the presidents and prime ministers and various other forms of dignitary to this wonderful place. Is nothing like the White House to me. We're represented today, and your continent is represented by Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal.
Let's pause right there. You know, one thing Trump is very good at is framing. And in just a few lines, he frames the entire moment as though these 5 leaders are speaking on behalf of an entire continent. But no, these men are not here representing the whole of Africa. They're here representing their individual countries: Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal. And that distinction matters because when Trump says your continent is represented, it implies that they've somehow been chosen as continental spokesmen. They haven't. No African Union mandate, no continental consensus. There's no formal coordination. Just 5 individual leaders, handpicked, not by Africans, but by Washington. So right from the start, we're not talking about a U.S.-Africa summit. We're talking about a meeting between one superpower and 5 leaders, framed to look like something much bigger than it actually is. And if you know anything about power, you know, framing isn't just about language. It's about control. And Trump is already setting the terms.
All very vibrant places with very valuable land, great minerals, great oil deposits, and wonderful people. Last month, the U.S.-Africa Business Summit had recorded an attendance record, actually, and generated $2.5 billion in new economic deals for the United States. On June 27th, the foreign ministers of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda visited the White House to sign a historic peace agreement that we worked out. They've been fighting for 30 years. 7 million are dead, and they think the number is actually quite a bit higher than that. It's been a long and vicious fight, and I just wanted to say that the countries represented were very happy that we were able to solve that problem. I think over the next couple of weeks, the leaders of both countries will come to sign the final agreement. As you know, we had foreign ministers last week, but we're going to be signing an end to the horrible 30-year war. It's been going on for a long time. I've been reading about it, hearing about it, and it was a vicious war. It was a terrible war.
Here we go again. Trump pivots from welcome to sales pitch, reminding the room and the cameras that what really matters to him isn't diplomacy, it's deals. He calls these countries vibrant, praising their minerals and oil, but not their leadership, not their vision, not their agency, just their land, their deposits, their value to him. And then he moves into what he frames as a major win, the DRC-Rwanda peace agreement, brokered by the United States. Now, let's be clear. Peace between Rwanda and the DRC is urgently needed. But the way Trump tells it, you'd think he just strolled into the room, waved a pen, and ended a 30-year war. But here's the thing. The ink isn't even dry on this so-called historic deal. And we're already seeing signs that it just may not hold. Just days ago, Rwanda's president, Paul Kagame, made it clear that he is unsure if the peace deal will hold. In other words, don't be so quick to take a victory lap. Yet here is Trump declaring the problem is solved, because that's what matters in his version of diplomacy: the optics, the headlines, the applause. And then he says something even more revealing.
Most people thought it couldn't be done, but there's still much more to be done, and we're going to be facilitating peace also in places like Sudan, where they have a lot of problems, Libya and others. We have there's a lot of anger on your continent, and we've been able to solve a lot of it.
Let's pause. That's not how you talk about sovereign nations grappling with centuries of exploitation, war, and structural inequality. You don't reduce deep-rooted crisis to just anger. And you certainly don't declare yourself the savior of a continent you barely understand, unless the goal isn't peace, but performance.
My administration is committed to strengthening our friendships in Africa through economic development efforts that benefit both the United States and our partners. And we're shifting from AID to trade. We had AID, or aid as we sometimes call it, right to trade. And trade seems to be a foundation that I've been able to settle a lot of these disputes, like as an example, India and Pakistan, Kosovo, Serbia. I said, you guys are going to fight, we're not going to trade. And we seem to be quite successful in doing that. To that end, we have closed the USAID group to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse, which was tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. And we're working tirelessly to forge new economic opportunities involving both the United States and many African nations. There's great economic potential in Africa, like few other places in many ways. In the long run, this will be far more effective and sustainable and beneficial than anything else that we can be doing together. I'm eager to work with each of you on your vital issues and also to discuss security. We've encouraged our staff at the White House to work along with these nations. There's such tremendous wealth there and potential there.
Now let's talk about this shift from aid to trade. On the surface, it sounds good and maybe even progressive. After all, for decades, African nations have called for a move away from dependency, inducing aid toward real economic partnerships. But let's not be fooled by the soundbite, because what Trump is selling isn't partnership, it's leverage. He's not saying, let's build trade relationships that empower African economies. He's saying, let's use trade as a weapon to get what we want. Just listen to the way he frames it. We were able to settle India and Pakistan because we said, no trade if you fight. And now, Africa. But here's the thing. It's not just trade he's weaponizing. It's travel bans, tariffs, visa threats, whatever tool he needs to pressure countries into doing what he wants. This is in diplomacy grounded in mutual respect. And it tells you exactly how Trump sees Africa. Not as a continent of sovereign nations, but as just another chessboard for advancing U.S. interests, his interests. Then he brags about shutting down USAID offices, claiming tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. But what's missing here is nuance. Yes, foreign aid has its flaws. But think about this. You're dismantling development infrastructure for supposedly more trade, which is a great idea. But then you refuse to build local capacity or ensure African ownership of investment decisions. How exactly is that progress? You're only pulling the plug and then calling it reform. And let's not miss the kicker here.
We encourage the countries here today to make greater investments in defense, hopefully, of course, buying our equipment, because we do make the best defense equipment. I guess we proved that about 2 weeks ago in Iran, but we make the best equipment, best military equipment anywhere in the world by far. There's nobody close. And keep pursuing the fight against terrorism, which is a big problem in Africa. Immigration will also be on the agenda, and I hope we can bring down the high rates of people overstaying visas and also make progress on the safe third country agreements.
There it is. It's not just about trade. It's about arms deals. He's pitching F-16s and drones while talking about partnership. He wants African nations to fight terrorism, but with American-made weapons, but with borrowed money under American terms. Then he brings up immigration, not development, not education, not healthcare, not trade, immigration. Specifically, visa overstays, while conveniently ignoring the structural reasons people leave in the first place. So let's be clear. This wasn't a summit about shared vision. It was a sales pitch, a strategic rollout of talking points that advance America's interests first and wrap it in the language of friendship and partnership. And in the end, there was the same old story with new packaging. We'll trade with you if you behave. We'll help you if you buy our weapons. We'll invest in you if you control your people. So when Trump ends with, there's such tremendous wealth there, he's not talking about shared opportunity here. He's talking about extraction with a smile. Now, the African leaders get their turn to speak. And the first one up is President of Mauritania, Mohamed Ould Gazwani.
Great gentleman, by the way.
Merci pour m'avoir donné la parole, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you for giving me the floor, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to thank you, Mr. President Trump, for inviting us to come here today. I'm President Gazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. Thank you, Mr. President, for this invitation and the invitation you sent to the other colleagues present here today. This is a very strong message from you, and we are receiving this message very well. This is a message of interest that you're sending to us, and it's a message that you're sending to the whole of Africa. All of this is generous on your part. We are receiving this and we accept this message from you.
Now let's pause and break this down for a second, because Mauritania might not be the first country that comes to mind when you think of African power players. But Trump, he didn't invite them by accident. Mauritania sits at a strategic crossroads between North Africa and the Sahel. And while it's a small country, it punches above its weight in ways that matter to Trump. First, natural gas. Mauritania is sitting on a gold mine. Well, technically a gas mine. The Greater Tortue Ahmeyim project, developed by BP, is one of the biggest offshore gas fields in West Africa. Trump knows energy is power, and he wants American companies in on that action. Second, minerals. Mauritania is one of the world's top exporters of iron ore. Add in gold, copper, and uranium, and you've got the kind of mineral wealth the U.S. is hungry for, especially as it tries to reduce dependency on China. Third, security. Mauritania shares a border with Mali, ground zero for jihadist violence in the Sahel. But unlike many of its neighbors, Mauritania has remained relatively stable. That makes it a valuable counterterrorism partner and a potential customer for American-made weapons, which Trump made sure to plug in. So while Mauritania might seem like a footnote in this summit, it's actually quite central to Trump's playbook. Energy, extraction, customers. That's the deal. And that's why Mauritania got a seat at the table. And President Gazwani, well, he just wanted to make sure that Trump knew just how grateful he was to have that seat.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President Trump, for inviting us to come here today. I'm President Gazwani, President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. Thank you, Mr. President, for this invitation and the invitation you sent to the other colleagues present here today. This is a very strong message from you, and we are receiving this message very well. This is a message of interest that you're sending to us, and it's a message that you're sending to the whole of Africa. All of this is generous on your part. We are receiving this, and we accept this message from you. Before I talk about my country, I would like to let you know that we are delighted to see President Trump's commitment to our continent. Mr. President, in the short time you've been back in office, the last few months, you came to the rescue for peace. You did it in it. You rushed to Africa to resolve a long-standing problem. Lots of efforts had been made by many heads of states, but your will made it possible for this agreement to be signed. And now, this conflict is behind us. Your work in favor of peace has been tremendous, and we are also very interested in supporting peace in the same way. Internationally, we understand that our weight, our influence is not that great, and we have no complex about this. It's also a small country because of our level of prosperity. We're not a very prosperous country. We have many problems related to the well-being of our population. But it is also a great country, a big country in other ways. Mauritania is a great country in the sense of its strategic position. It is on the Atlantic coast, which makes it a neighbor to the US. It is what unites North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, or what links the two. In terms of resources, we have a great deal of resources, many, many resources, and we have a lot of opportunities to offer in terms of investment. We have minerals, rare earths, rare minerals. We have manganese. We have uranium.
If there was ever a moment that captured the awkwardness and imbalance of this entire summit, that was it. President Gazwani of Mauritania took the mic and turned what should have been a brief remark into an 8-minute love letter to Donald Trump. And I wish I was exaggerating, but he thanked Trump for inviting them, praising him for caring about Africa, and then launched into a sweeping global tour of conflicts where he credits Trump for bringing peace. India and Pakistan, Russia and Ukraine, Israel and Iran, the Middle East, the Congo, like he's recapping a Marvel movie where Trump is the superhero saving the world one ceasefire at a time. But let's be real. None of these conflicts are actually resolved, right? And in some cases, like the Congo, Rwanda situation, The deal he's praising may not even survive this month. Still, Gazwani doubled down, saying Trump's will made it possible for peace in Africa. And then he pivoted hard. For the next 4 minutes, the speech turned into a sales pitch. He laid out Mauritania's entire mineral catalog like he was pitching at Shark Tank. We have uranium, manganese, maybe lithium. We're the second largest iron producer in Africa. We've got fish. We've got water. He even said Mauritania is on the Atlantic coast, which makes us a neighbor to the US. A neighbor? Y'all, it was a spectacle, to say the least, and not in a good way. You could feel the discomfort in the room, and clearly Trump did too, because after several minutes of polite nodding, Trump finally cut him off.
We're the second largest producer for the last 60 years in Africa of iron ore. We produce a lot. And we have a lot of resources in our seawaters, so lots of fishing and whatnot. I don't want to spend too much time on this.
But I appreciate it very much. I appreciate it. Maybe we're going to have to go a little bit quicker than this because we have a whole schedule. If I could just say it's, your name and your country would be great. Thank you, please.
Not even trying to hide the irritation here. That moment told you everything you needed to know. This wasn't a meeting of equals. It was a performance with African leaders playing the role of grateful guests and Trump basking in the praise while holding the power. Now, Gazwani's speech was part flattery, part desperation, part missed opportunity, because instead of using the moment to assert Mauritania's vision or demand fairer trade terms or challenge U.S. double standards, he begged for attention and offered up resources like raffle prizes. And then came the president of Guinea-Bissau, Umaro Sissoko Embalo. Now, his remarks was short, but in some ways it said everything.
Muito obrigado, Sr. Presidente Trump, e sobretudo.
Thank you, Mr. President, and for welcome and everything. For us, it's the second time here to come as a guest. The first time we had that meeting in Guinea-Bissau, but I will not talk so much. But Guinea-Bissau is a peaceful country, and we are a small country, but we are a great state. Not a great state like the United States, but we are a great country as well.
Let's pause on that. Why do some African leaders feel the need to say this, right? We're small, not great like the United States. Our influence is limited, but we try. We're poor, but we're hopeful. Where's the pride? Where's the ownership of your own greatness on your own terms? Because greatness isn't just about GDP and military might. It's culture, it's resilience, it's history, but most of all, it's vision. And yet in front of a US president, these leaders just shrink themselves, like they need to earn their place at the table by first admitting that they're not worthy. It's painful to watch because it reflects something deeper, right? How global power has been internalized, how former colonies are still conditioned to defer to their former rulers or new ones. Now, to be fair, Guinea-Bissau is a small country, just under 2 million people. But its geopolitical significance may explain why it got an invite. First, it's a coastal nation in a region increasingly important to the US and European counter-narcotics and anti-terror operations. Guinea-Bissau has long been labeled a narco state, a transshipment hub for cocaine from Latin America into Europe. So yes, it's peaceful, but it's also strategic. Second, it's a Portuguese-speaking African country, giving the U.S. a diplomatic link to Lusophone Africa, including Angola, Mozambique, and Cape Verde. Building relationships here is about regional influence. And third, they are a vulnerable state. Guinea-Bissau has gone through a series of coups and attempted coups over the years and is reportedly keen for the U.S. Embassy to reopen in the capital following its closure in 1998. They're desperate. And for Trump, he sees this as a chance to showcase outreach without taking real geopolitical risk. A small nation, easy to manipulate, unlikely to challenge. In fact, right before the meeting, President Mbalu said to a reporter, quote, Guinea-Bissau has now emerged from a state of disorder to become a real state. The Americans do not invite just any state to their country, only a well-structured state. Yeah, that's what he said. So for him, this is probably the invitation of a lifetime.
To end, we are be following your dynamics and the war with Russia and Ukraine, and you can count on Guinea-Bissau. Thank you very much.
You can count on Guinea-Bissau. Well, we can all guess where the next flight of U.S. deportees are headed. And then came the president of Liberia, Joseph Boakai. And his pitch went viral for all the wrong reasons. But before we get into that, a little bit about Liberia. Now, Liberia is a country with a unique relationship to the United States. It was founded in the 1800s by formerly enslaved Africans who returned from America. Its capital, Monrovia, was named after a U.S. president. Its flag, red, white, and blue. Its political structure, modeled after the U.S. Constitution. So yes, Liberia has deep historic ties to the United States. Now let's take a listen to President Boakai's pitch.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me congratulate you for the recent celebration of your 249th anniversary. We did in Liberia at your embassy. Mr. President, we thank you for this opportunity to be here. Liberia is a longtime friend of the United States, and we believe in your policy of making America great again.
Wait, did he actually just say, we believe in your policy of making America great again? Let that sink in. The leader of an African nation standing in the White House, co-signing Make America Great Again, a slogan that, let's be honest, has been used to justify policies that have hurt Black people, immigrants, and yes, Africans. Where's the political self-respect here? Let's keep going.
And we also go a long way with you, in your diplomacy that has to do with economic development and commercial friendship. Liberia has a lot of minerals, and one of the things we ask as good friends for a long time is the opportunity to do a survey of our minerals. Mm-hmm. And also we are committed to peace, and we've been very lucky within our region. We are a country that have had a series of democratic elections, and our country had been cooling down. And also we want to encourage American involvement in the investment in Liberia. Yeah. We'd like to see that happen. We want to work with the United States in peace and security within the region, because we are committed to that. And we just want to thank you so much for this opportunity.
So after endorsing Trump's Making America Great Again policy, then, like the others, he pivots straight into resources. Liberia has minerals, he says, and he's asking the U.S. to help do a survey of what's underground. Translation, come help us figure out how rich we are so you can be the first to extract it. Again, this wasn't a conversation about value addition or African ownership or equity in trade deals. It wasn't, we believe in your Make America Great Again policy. And we too want to make Liberia great again. So we demand better trade terms, real investment, and no more raw resource extraction. No, none of that. Just, we have minerals. Please come, help us figure out what we have. Now, to be clear, Liberia is strategically important, right? It's positioned along the Atlantic, right in the middle of a region where US-China competition is heating up. It's rich in iron ore, gold, and timber, and is still recovering from a brutal 14-year civil war and the devastating Ebola outbreak of a decade ago. So yes, there's a real case to be made for deeper engagement. But that engagement should be on Liberia's terms, not just Washington's. But here's the problem. Liberia is a vulnerable state as well. It's in desperate need of cash, and it's been hit hard by USAID cuts. And now, according to reports, it's even considering a U.S. proposal to accept deported migrants, including criminals, in exchange for investment. So, are you starting to see what's happening here? Trump didn't just randomly invite 5 African countries to the White House. He handpicked vulnerable states desperate for money, aid, and recognition, and made a spectacle of them in front of the world to assert U.S. dominance on the continent and call it diplomacy. But then here comes the part that made the headlines, the moment that made Liberians and many Africans clench a fist.
Well, thank you. And such good English, such beautiful. Where did you learn to speak so beautifully? Where were you educated? Where?
Yes, sir.
In Liberia.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's very interesting. It's beautiful English.
Sure.
I have people at this table can't speak nearly as well,
Very
and
good, sir. Thank you.
they come from here. So thank you very much. Please.
Interesting? No, Mr. President. What's interesting is that Liberia was literally founded by freed African Americans. Its official language is English. Its schools teach in English. Its laws are written in English. Its presidents speak English because that's the country's national language. So the real question is, why are you surprised? What we witnessed wasn't a compliment. It was a microaggression, a moment soaked in condescension, masquerading as admiration. Because when a world leader expresses shock that an African president speaks fluent English, it betrays a very specific mindset, that Africa is supposed to be backwards, that eloquence is an exception, not the norm, that being African somehow makes you less capable until proving otherwise. And then came President Brice Oligui Nguema of Gabon. And let's just say, if there was ever a speech that embodied the tension between posturing and powerlessness, this was it.
I would like to commend you, Mr. President, for the success you had in reaching a peace agreement between Rwanda and the DRC. Africa is a vast continent that has many problems, and we truly count on you for your assistance in Sudan and in the Sahel, because no investment can be made when there is a war. For investment, you need peace. The other heads of state who are here with me represent countries that are at peace, and that has been the case for some time.
He starts off, like most of the others, by congratulating Trump for bringing peace to the DRC and Rwanda. Again, a deal that hasn't even been finalized and is still under stress. Then he pivots. We count on you for assistance in Sudan, in the Sahel, because no investment can be made when there is war. Now, he's not wrong about that, right? Peace is foundational. But once again, here's another African leader looking to the U.S., to Trump specifically, as the continent's fixer-in-chief. And from there, it gets even more revealing.
When we also have raw materials, minerals, rare earths, we are not poor countries. We are rich countries when it comes to raw materials, but we need partners to support us and help us develop those resources with win-win partnerships. That is our wish.
But here's the part that made me stop and rewind.
I often listen to your remarks and speeches, Mr. President. We also want our raw materials to be processed locally in our country so that we can create value and to create jobs for youth so that they stop dying.
Now, that's a powerful statement. And it's the first time in this entire summit that someone said something that sounded like a real development strategy. Local processing, value addition, job creation. It's what we've been calling for decades. But even here, there's a catch. Because while he says he wants win-win partnership, he also says this.
They are crossing the sea, the ocean, to go to other countries. That is what we want to have, local processing of raw materials. Gabon is a rich country. We have over 2 million inhabitants and a great deal of diversity, raw materials, oil and gas reserves. And we would like those resources to be tapped using an economic model that fits. Since our liberation, we have changed how we do trade. We've focused on transparency and bids for anyone who wants to come invest in our country. If you follow the news, we have also worked on agreements with the European Union, and we wanted to review those because we didn't think that those were win-win opportunities. So our market is open. We want to process manganese locally, which you purchase through a company called Aramet. And I'm sure that it's more expensive compared to when you can come and buy it directly from us. In order to do this local processing, we need 8 to 10 gigawatts of electricity. Again, this is an open bid. Any American company that wants to invest in electricity in Gabon is welcome to take advantage of that opportunity. Now, looking at defense, the Gulf of Guinea is an issue. There is maritime piracy in that area, and we want to work together to stabilize it. You said you had the best equipment, the best military equipment, and that's what we'd like to have so that we can stop maritime piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. We can't do it alone. We need a reliable and strong partner that is committed and that takes real steps, real action. We also need to be pragmatic, and that's what you are. And I'm a general, and I am too. I'm pragmatic. I like it when things move quickly. Our country is free, open to one and all. You are welcome to come and invest. Otherwise, other countries might come instead of you. Thank you.
Now, to be fair, he really tried to be assertive, right? He certainly has made the best case so far. But when he says, we're open, and if you don't act fast, China will, that's not negotiating from strength. That's a sales pitch with a threat. And it makes one just look desperate. But let's not forget, Nguema is not just a president. He's a general who seized power in a coup and was just sworn in as president of Gabon a couple of months ago. So when he says, I'm pragmatic, I like it when things move quickly, that's not just business talk. That's military logic. And that explains a lot. Because this speech wasn't just about partnerships. It was about control, about survival. Nguema needs foreign investment to legitimize his regime, and fast. Now, why was Gabon invited to this summit? Simple. Natural resources. Gabon is one of the world's largest producers of manganese, critical for batteries and steel. It holds around a quarter of the global known reserves of manganese. It also has rare earths, the minerals of the future. Second, energy infrastructure. With major gaps in power supply, Gabon is a lucrative opportunity for U.S. energy firms, especially in the race to compete with Chinese infrastructure deals. Third is geopolitical leverage. Gabon's position in the Gulf of Guinea gives it a strategic foothold in maritime security and a reason to buy U.S. military hardware, which Trump just so happens to be marketing. So let's be honest. Nguema came to the White House not just to talk about Gabon's potential, but to sell it fast. Because in the new Scramble for Africa, he's betting that whoever gets there first wins. But here's the problem. When leaders present their countries like a product instead of a partner, they don't get respect. They get deals. The kind that benefit everyone but the people. Once again, we're reminded, if Africa wants to rise, it can't just offer its resources. It has to defend its worth. And then came the final act, the president of Senegal. Now, this was the moment that tied the whole meeting together because it had all the ingredients: praise for Trump's global peacekeeping, an open invitation for U.S. investment, and a pitch for a golf course. Let's watch.
Mr. President, I would like to thank you for this invitation. It is an honor for us to be here at the White House and to have this opportunity to speak with you about the new partnership that you are putting in place with Africa, particularly for investment. I also wanted to commend you for your commitment to peace throughout the world and the incredible diplomatic success that you had with the DRC, as my colleagues mentioned. You said that this put an end to a long war that claimed many lives, and thankfully, you were here to put an end to this 30-year war. I also wanted to express that Africa supports all efforts to bring back peace to Sudan, Libya, and in the Sahel. Mr. President, as you've seen, you can only do business when there is peace and security, and you build peace everywhere in the world so that there can be better investments. The entire world is grateful to you for this. Now, with respect to my country, Senegal, I've been president for some 15, 16 months now. And I want to reassure all American investors about our country's political stability and our favorable regulatory environment, which we are continuously improving upon in order to attract more investment. I wanted to speak about two projects that I think are an exceptional opportunity. I will speak about the U.S. Ecological Survey, which can help assess the potential of the minerals in our country. And thanks to American companies, we've been able to discover oil and gas. Some 950 billion cubic meters of gas that we can tap into in order to support our economy. And again, here we were able to do this with an American company. Another project I'd like to mention, and again, I would like to invite American investors to take part in this. It's for a digital city. We identified a space within the city of Dakar. It has a view of the sea. It's on some 40 hectares, and this is a great opportunity for American tech companies to come in and make Dakar a tech city open to Africa. I was wondering what your secret was for resolving all these complex crises, and I know you are a tremendous golf player. Golf requires concentration and precision, qualities that also make for a great leader. Senegal has exceptional opportunities to offer including in the area of tourism. So perhaps an investment could be made in a golf course in Senegal. It would just be 6 hours by flight from New York, from Miami, from Europe, or from the Gulf, and that would be an opportunity for you to show off your skills on the golf course too. Thank you for your attention, sir.
Nice. It's some way to show off my skills. It's a long trip to show off my skill, but that's really nice. And he's led a very interesting life. He looks like a very young person. He's a little older than he looks, but a fantastic job. He was treated very unfairly by his government, and he prevailed. And so congratulations on that. Really, congratulations. It was a great job.
Now, I have to be honest. I was surprised to see Bassirou Diomaye Faye at this meeting. Yes, he's one of Africa's youngest presidents. And since taking office, he's positioned himself as a bold reformer. He's moved towards sovereignty, talking openly about nationalizing Senegalese resources and even kicking out France. This is a leader who's been signaling a break from neocolonial power structures. So I didn't expect him to be one of the leaders singing Trump's praises. But I get it. He needs serious investment to execute his agenda. He's building Senegal's first gold refinery. He's focused on infrastructure, energy independence, and economic transformation. He's extremely business-minded. So he wants foreign capital to fuel Senegal's growth. What I did appreciate is that he didn't just show up to pitch raw materials. He pitched sectors that could actually create jobs and opportunity for Senegal. Oil and gas, tourism, tech. So while I was surprised he attended this summit, I hope it was a calculated strategic move and not a surrender to old power dynamics. But then he ended his speech by inviting Trump to build a golf course in Senegal to honor Trump's skills as an investment opportunity. Perhaps he was trying to flatter Trump, but I didn't get the point of that. But again, what we didn't hear from Senegal's president or from anyone at that summit was any real challenge to the power imbalance in the room. No mention of how African leaders can negotiate better deals, no insistence on value-added exports, no framework for mutual accountability. Just applause, investment pitches, and an invitation to tee off in Dakar. And that's the real tragedy of this moment. Not just the optics, but the opportunity lost. Because when African leaders come to the table already willing to shrink themselves, they don't walk away with partnership. They walk away with patronage. So, 5 African leaders came to the White House to pitch. And what happens next? Well, we just have to wait and see. But here's the truth. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. It wasn't just a photo op. It was a performance, one that felt eerily reminiscent of a different era, one we claim to have moved past. Because if the 19th century was defined by the scramble for Africa, where European powers carved up the continent behind closed doors, then what we saw at the White House was a modern-day sequel. But this time, the pitch didn't come from colonizers. It came from African leaders themselves. Instead of using this rare moment on the world stage to assert Africa's value, these African leaders asked for permission to be taken seriously. But history should have taught us by now. You don't beg your way to dignity. You don't flatter your way to freedom. And you don't win by playing someone else's game. You win by rewriting the rules. Africa is not poor. Africa is not weak. Africa is the youngest, richest, and most underestimated continent on earth. But if our leaders don't act like it, then summits like this will just keep happening. And the new Scramble for Africa will move forward with our resources on the table and our leaders doing the selling. So the question is not, what did Trump do? The question is, what are we doing? Because if we don't defend our value, someone else will define it for us again. And this time, the shame won't be theirs. It'll be ours. And here's the bottom line, my people. If Africa truly wants to be taken seriously on the global stage, it has to stop auditioning for approval and start demanding a seat at the table on its own terms. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think about this US-Africa summit? Was it a strategic move or a missed opportunity? And which president, if any, made the strongest case for their country? Drop your thoughts below. Let's have a real conversation about this. And if this episode resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and tag someone who needs to see this. That's it for today's show. I'm Sandra Babu-Boateng. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit face2faceafrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.